Lord Shen doesn't look like trauma at first. That's what makes him so easy to miss. He doesn't come on screen trembling or broken or obviously wounded. He looks polished, controlled, elegant, dangerous in that very specific way. Some people are dangerous when they've made their pain look like discipline. He looks like he's winning. He looks like someone who got hurt a long time ago and came back sharper, smarter, untouchable. And maybe that's why he lands so hard, because a lot of people expect damage to look messy. They expect it to look loud, unstable, easy to identify. But some of the deepest wounds don't make a person collapse. They make them precise. That's Shen. Precision as a survival strategy, control as a personality, performance as armor. And once you see that, you can't unsee it, because the movie keeps showing you the same pattern over and over again. He doesn't just want power, he wants protection. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to never be caught unprepared again. Every gesture, every line, every cruel decision comes from the same place. A child walked into a room needing love, and instead got horror. Everything after that is just the echo. That's the part people skip past. Shen's story isn't just about prophecy, violence, or destiny. It's about what happens when a person turns one moment of rejection into the central truth of their identity. One look becomes a worldview. One punishment becomes a permanent script. One unbearable moment gets frozen in place and starts interpreting the rest of your life for you. Let's have a second watch on this. Shen grows up in a family whose legacy is joy, fireworks, celebration, beauty lighting up the sky. But he looks at the same invention and sees something else entirely. A weapon. That matters. Not just because it tells you he's dark or twisted, but because it tells you how early his relationship with the world got distorted. Where other people saw wonder, he saw leverage. Where they saw delight, he saw force. He was already learning to translate life into threat and control. And while his parents ruled a city, it was the soothsayer who actually raised him. She fed him, watched him, stayed close enough to know who he was when the room was quiet. She was there in the spaces that shape a child more than speeches ever do. That combination is catastrophic. But even that isn't the moment that defines him most. The defining moment comes after. He goes home expecting praise. That detail is brutal. He doesn't sneak back in ashamed. He doesn't return hiding what he's done. He comes back proud. He thinks he fixed the problem. He thinks he was strong. He thinks maybe, finally, the thing that lives under all that grandiosity will get what it's always wanted: approval, recognition, love. Instead, his parents look at him with horror, and they send him away. That's the crack everything grows out of. Because now the story becomes simple enough for a wounded mind to live inside forever. They saw what I was, and they threw me away. That's it. That's the script. Not, I did something monstrous, and they could not bear it. Not, love and grief got tangled up with justice in a way no child could understand. Just one clean, poisonous interpretation. I was rejected for being me. That story will run his whole life. And honestly, that's one of the most human things about him. Not the scale of it, obviously. Most people don't respond to rejection by building weapons and taking over cities. But the mechanism? That part is painfully familiar. Something happens once, maybe twice, maybe enough times that it all blurs together, and your mind decides it has figured people out. It writes a rule. Don't come in unprepared. Don't let them see you need anything. Don't wait around to be dismissed. Don't risk being known unless you control the outcome. Then one day you wake up and call that maturity. That's why Shen is so unsettling. Not because he's a peacock with knives. Because he is what happens when emotional self-protection becomes a full philosophy of life. Watch what he does when he returns to Gongmen City. He retakes the palace, his father's palace, the place where everything broke. And the first thing he focuses on isn't strategy in the broad sense. It's placement. Inches. He finds the throne his father promised would one day be his, destroys it, and replaces it with a cannon. Then he adjusts that cannon obsessively, inch by inch, until it is exactly where he wants it. That scene tells you almost everything. This is not a man simply claiming power. This is a man restaging a wound. He is rewriting the room. He is taking the symbol of rejection and replacing it with the symbol of force. My father's promise failed me, so I will put something stronger in its place. Not inheritance, not belonging, not love. A weapon, something that cannot hesitate, something that cannot look at me with disappointment, something that obeys. That's why the exact position matters so much. Because when you've lost control in one life-defining moment, you start worshiping control in all the smaller ones. You micromanage details because details feel safer than feelings. You rehearse conversations because spontaneity once cost you something. You plan exits before entrances. You edit yourself in real time. You become excellent at anticipating shifts in tone, distance, expression. Not because you're calm, but because somewhere underneath, you're still trying to prevent an old disaster from happening again. Shen literally rehearses his greeting before meeting Po. Multiple takes, different versions, different tones. It would almost be funny if it weren't so sad. Here is a warlord, a conqueror, a supposed master of fear, standing in his reclaimed palace and practicing how he'll speak to one person. Why? Because scripts feel safer than truth. Performance feels safer than exposure. The last time he walked into that space openly, proudly, without a script, he lost everything. So now every moment must be managed. And the soothsayer sees right through him. She doesn't challenge his power first. She names his fear. That's what cuts so deep. People can often tolerate being called cruel before they can tolerate being seen clearly. Cruelty can still feel like strength. Fear feels like exposure. Then the movie does something even more revealing. It shows you what happens when someone tells Shen no. Not just any number, a familiar number. In the final battle, when Wolf Boss resists the order to fire the cannon because it will kill their own men, Shen snaps instantly. No pause, no negotiation, no room for conflict, just violence. And that reaction only makes sense when you realize Shen is not responding to the moment in front of him. He's responding to an older moment layered underneath it. One no from his parents, and his life shattered. So now, in his world, disagreement is never just disagreement. Resistance is not a separate event. It feels like the beginning of exile, the start of abandonment, the first crack in loyalty that will end, inevitably, with him being left. So he destroys it before it can fully exist. That's what so many damage patterns do. They erase the in-between. It's never, this person is upset with me. It becomes, this person is done with me. It's never, things feel off today. It becomes, the ending has started. It's never, we need to talk. It becomes, I should leave first. And people do this quietly all the time. Someone takes longer to reply, and you tell yourself not to overreact. But deep down, you've already begun pulling back. Someone says they need space, and before they've even explained what that means, part of you is already rehearsing a life that doesn't include them. You stop asking, stop reaching, stop risking. You call it respect, you call it perspective, you call it being realistic. But sometimes what you're really doing is abandoning the situation before it has the chance to abandon you. That's the tragedy. These defenses often work exactly the way they were designed to. They keep you from being blindsided. They reduce uncertainty. They let you stay one move ahead. But they also make intimacy almost impossible. Because people cannot connect with a version of you that is always halfway out the door. And the wall feels smart while you're building it. That's the part nobody tells you. Self-protection is often incredibly effective in the short term. You can avoid embarrassment. Avoid vulnerability. Avoid the rawness of needing someone who might disappoint you. But over time, the same structure that shields you also isolates you. People can't hurt you as easily from behind the wall. Eventually, they also stop coming near it. What makes Shen even sadder is that there is one person whose resistance he can tolerate. The soothsayer. She challenges him, mocks him, pushes back on him, and he never destroys her for it. Why? Because her no never carried exile inside it. She stayed. Even when he became monstrous, she stayed long enough that some part of him still associates her with a kind of safety. He didn't learn to handle disagreement in general. He learned to handle hers, specifically, because hers did not threaten the core wound. That is such a precise emotional detail. People are rarely universally defended or universally open. They're selective. They may panic at distance from one person and stay steady with another. They may hear criticism as rejection in one relationship and not another. Because we don't just react to words. We react to what our history taught those words to mean. Then comes the moment that could have changed everything. The soothsayer tells Shen the truth about his parents. They did love him. Sending him away destroyed them. Their grief consumed them. And for a brief second, you can see the performance stop. That matters. He hears her. It lands. The truth reaches him. But hearing the truth and living inside it are two very different things. Because by that point, the wound is no longer just pain. It's architecture. It's load-bearing. His entire identity is built around the story that he was hated, rejected, cast out for what he was. If that story collapses, then what happens to all the years of vengeance, all the cruelty, all the meaning he's extracted from his suffering? What happens if the pain that defined him was never what he thought it was? What happens if the person you became only survives because the wound stays unquestioned? That's a terrifying moment. Maybe one of the most terrifying a person can face. Because sometimes healing doesn't just ask you to feel better. Sometimes it asks you to grieve the self you built in response to the pain. And even a miserable identity can feel safer than an unknown one. That's why Shen turns away. Not because he doesn't understand, because he understands enough to know the cost. Peace would mean admitting that everything built around the wound was hollow. Peace would mean stepping into a life without the old script, and he has no idea who he is without it. Then on the wreckage, with everything stripped away, he asks the only honest question he ever really asks. How did you find peace? That line is devastating because it comes from a place deeper than arrogance. For one moment, Shen is not performing. He genuinely does not understand how someone lets go of what has shaped them. Poe gives him the answer as simply as possible. What matters is what you choose now. And Shen says, "You're right." That's what makes the ending so tragic. He is not ignorant in that moment. He is not confused. He sees the door. He just cannot walk through it. He chooses the wound anyway. He chooses the self built around injury because the alternative feels like annihilation. Better to die as the person pain made him than survive as someone he does not know how to be. And that hits harder than most villain endings because it doesn't feel distant. It feels recognizable, not in scale, but in shape. How many times do people keep choosing a pattern they know is hurting them because it has become familiar enough to feel like identity? How many people stay guarded long after the danger has passed because openness now feels fake? How many relationships get damaged not by cruelty, but by preemptive retreat? How many times do we quietly create the distance we were afraid of, then point to it as proof we were right to be afraid? That's the real sting of Shen's story. It isn't just that pain can twist you, it's that pain can start making sense to you. It can become coherent, useful, predictable. It can explain everything, and once it does, giving it up can feel less like healing and more like losing your map. But a map built from hurt will only ever lead you back to hurt. That's what Shen never accepts. The thing that protected him became the thing that imprisoned him. The weapon he built out of his family's legacy. The cannon he placed where his father's throne used to be. The symbol of everything he chose instead of vulnerability, instead of grief, instead of truth. That's what falls on him in the end. Not because fate is poetic, though it is. Because eventually, the structures we build to avoid pain start collapsing under their own weight. And maybe that's the part worth sitting with. Not whether you're secretly like Lord Shen in some dramatic, cinematic way, but whether there's a smaller version of that pattern living somewhere in you. A conversation you keep rehearsing because once, long ago, the unrehearsed version hurt too much. A relationship you're already half exiting because vulnerability feels more dangerous than distance. A story about yourself you've repeated so often it feels untouchable, even though it may not even be true anymore. That's not weakness, It's not melodrama. It's what people do when pain teaches them to survive before it teaches them to live. But survival strategies have expiration dates. The thing that kept you safe at one point can start costing you more than it saves. And there comes a moment, for all of us, when the question is no longer whether the wound was real. It was. The question is whether you want to keep organizing your life around it, because peace is not pretending nothing happened. It's refusing to let what happened become the only story you're allowed to be. And that's why Shen stays with people, not because he's just a great villain, though he is. He stays with people because he understands something awful and true. You can be brilliant, elegant, powerful, even admired, and still be living your whole life from one old moment you never really left. The hard part is noticing it before the cannon falls.